Cade stood at the wide entrance of the Aralax's throne room. High crystal pillars rose on both sides. Soft light glowed from the walls. Hundreds of courtiers held their breath. All eyes turned to the human envoy. He wore a simple blue coat and polished boots. His heart beat fast. He had trained for this moment, yet nothing could calm his nerves. He raised his chin and walked forward. At the room's center, Princess Lyra sat on a silver dais. She wore a deep red gown and a crown shaped like twin moons. Her face was calm and proud. Her long white hair fell over her shoulders. She watched Cade with sharp eyes. Cade paused a few steps away. He bowed his head in a polite greeting. The silence grew heavier. Even the guards held their breath. He felt their eyes on his back. He took a slow breath and lifted his head. "Your Highness," he said in a clear voice, "I come from Earth to speak of peace." His words echoed in the high hall. The crowd leaned forward to hear more. Lyra's gaze did not change. She showed no smile. Yet Cade felt her full attention. He let his hand slide to his chest. He held a small holo invitation. It glowed with soft blue light. "I wish to know you better," he continued. "Would you go out to dinner with me on neutral ground?" The holo floated above his palm. It showed a garden under two pale moons. A sudden hush fell. Cade's pulse jumped. He looked to the princess. He saw surprise flicker in her eyes. The courtiers gasped softly. A dinner invitation was not a simple thing in Aralax. It carried deep weight. Cade held his breath. He had no sword. He had no shield. He had only hope. He hoped his words were brave enough. He hoped his request was clear. Lyra stood at once, a sign no one missed. Her guards tensed. Her hand moved toward the thin blade at her side. The crowd froze. Metal sang softly as her sword slid half free. Cade's heart froze for a moment. He did not move. He did not flinch. He bowed again, showing respect. He kept his hands in sight. For a long moment, nothing happened but Lyra's blade. The room felt tight and small. Cade could hear his own breath. He could feel every eye on him. Then the princess did the most unexpected thing. She did not speak. She did not charge. She held the blade at her waist and waited. Her face showed curiosity and caution. The air felt electric. Cade raised his hand a little. He offered the holo again. He let its soft blue glow fill the space between them. He hoped it spoke as loudly as his words. Lyra's lips moved as if weighing his offer. The throne room held its breath once more. Cade felt both fear and hope rise in his chest. This moment would decide more than dinner. It might change the fate of two worlds. Lyra's silver blade slid free of its sheath with a sharp hiss. The high hall fell silent. Guards in red armor readied themselves, hearts pounding. Crystal pillars trembled under the tension. Courtiers pressed forward, eyes wide with shock. Cade stood his ground, unarmed and calm, facing the princess's challenge. He felt the weight of every gaze on him. Yet his spirit did not waver. He remembered his training and his mission to bring peace. Slowly, he lifted one open hand in a sign of trust. His other hand, empty, hung at his side. The soft glow of the holo invitation danced on his palm. Lyra held her blade upright, its edge gleaming like frozen light. Her white hair fell around her face, hallowed by the ceiling's glow. She watched Cade without a flicker of doubt. Every breath she took seemed measured and powerful. The blade trembled slightly as she considered his request. Cade's heart pounded, but he refused to flinch. He took a step forward, careful and respectful. The guards stiffened, ready to act, but he raised both hands higher. His voice rang clear and steady. "Princess Lyra, I mean no harm. I ask only for your company and a peaceful meal." A murmur rippled through the court. Some whispered that a human had never stood so boldly before the Aralax heir. Others held their breath, waiting for violence. Lyra did not answer at once. She kept her blade raised, yet her posture relaxed just a fraction. The silence stretched, heavy as stone. Cade swallowed and offered the holo again. The tiny garden glowed like a distant world between them. He spoke again, softer this time. "I wish to learn of your world. Please, dine with me." In that moment, Lyra's eyes softened for the first time. She lowered the tip of her blade until it rested on the polished floor. A single smile curved on her lips. The guards exhaled as one. The court gasped before joy replaced fear. Lyra drew in a quiet breath and looked squarely at Cade. She withdrew the blade completely and slid it back into its sheath. Then she stepped down from the dais, closing the space between them. Her gown rustled like wind in dry leaves. The princess paused within arm's reach. "I accept," she said, her voice clear and firm. "Meet me by the moon garden at twilight." Cade bowed deeply, relief flooding his chest. The hushed crowd broke into soft applause. Cade glanced upward as the biolights on the pillars shifted to emerald green. Soft scents of night blooms drifted through the open doors and filled the hall. Lyra's gaze held new warmth. He straightened his coat and extended his hand in a courteous gesture. She placed her slender hand in his and nodded once with grace. Together, they walked toward the high doors that led to the moon garden, stepping into a new chapter of hope. Cade stepped through the grand doors into the corridor. Torches of soft light lined the walls. He could hear his own footsteps echo. His heart still raced from the test in the throne room. Ahead, 2 guards waited in polished armor. They saluted him and held the path clear. He followed them down a long hall. The walls were carved with scenes of Aralak's history. Cade's eyes moved from one carving to the next. Each story showed battles and treaties. He thought of his own world and the many long wars on Earth. He felt both hope and respect for the Aralak's people. At the end of the hall, a pair of silver doors slid open. Beyond lay the moon garden. Twilight had already fallen. 2 pale moons hung low in the purple sky. Their light mixed with the gentle glow of bioluminescent flowers. A soft breeze carried the scent of night blossoms. Cade paused at the garden gate. A low stone table sat on a flagstone clearing. 2 crystal chairs faced each other. On the table stood simple dishes, roasted root vegetables, fresh fruit, and bowls of steaming tea. He stepped forward, smoothing the front of his coat. He heard a soft sound behind him. Cade turned to see Princess Lyra enter the garden. She wore a flowing silver dress now, and her hair was loose in gentle waves. The sword at her side was hidden under a sash. She moved with calm grace. Cade bowed deeply. The moonlight caught her features, turning her pale skin to a soft glow. Her lips curved in a small, polite smile. He straightened and gestured to the chair across from him. "Your Highness, please." His voice was steady but kind. Lyra nodded and took her seat. Cade sat opposite her. He reached out to pour tea into 2 cups. The liquid steamed in the cool night air. He handed her a cup. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. "I am honored." She lifted her cup and bowed her head. "I wish to learn more about Earth," she replied. Her tone was clear and gentle. Cade felt relief bloom in his chest. He raised his cup in a silent toast, then sipped the warm brew. They ate in quiet peace at first. Crickets chirped in the background. Water trickled in a small fountain near the table. Cade broke the silence. "On Earth, we have many foods like these," he said, pointing to the vegetables. "We cook with fire and many spices." Lyra set down her cup and leaned forward. "Tell me of your people," she asked. "What do they value most?" Cade smiled. He placed his hands on the table. "They value hope and bravery," he answered. "They value peace after long war." Lyra's eyes shone in the moonlight. She nodded slowly, as if weighing his words. Cade reached for a slice of fruit and offered it to her. She accepted it, her slender fingers brushing his. A soft breeze stirred the flowers. The 2 moons shone brighter. They shared stories late into the night. Each word built a bridge between their worlds. As part 3 ended, Cade realized that this simple garden dinner might change many lives, starting with theirs. After their meal, Cade and Princess Lyra rose from the stone table. The moon garden lay quiet under the two pale moons. Bioluminescent flowers glowed softly around them. Lyra led Cade along a narrow path of flagstones, her silver dress brushing the petals. "I want to share a special Erelax tradition," Lyra said, her voice low. She paused at a small pool of clear water. Tall reeds bent over its edge. At midnight, a rare flower blooms here. It opens only for peace ceremonies. Cade knelt by the pool's edge and studied his reflection in the water. He could see his own face next to Lyra's pale image. He felt calm in her presence. "I would be honored to witness it," he said. Lyra smiled and touched his arm. She guided him to a circle of smooth stones. They sat side by side, facing the still water. The air was cool, and the scent of night blossoms drifted around them. For a time, they said nothing. Crickets sang in the reeds. A gentle breeze rustled the flowers. Cade watched the small ripples in the pool. Lyra gazed at the sky. "Do you miss Earth?" she asked after a while. Cade thought of home, of blue oceans and green forests. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I feel at peace here with you." Lyra looked at him, her sharp eyes soft. "Humans feel many emotions," she said. "We Erelax hide ours. Yet I feel hope when I speak with you." Cade smiled. "Hope is a strong gift," he said. "It can change the hardest heart." Lyra studied him thoughtfully. Then she rose and extended a hand. Cade took it, and she led him to a tall stalk rising from the pool's center. A green bud hung closed at its tip. "It will open soon," Lyra whispered. She knelt beside the bud and placed her hand on it. Cade knelt on the other side. They waited in silence as stars drifted slowly overhead. Cade cleared his throat softly and began to hum a quiet tune from Earth. His melody was simple, a song of friendship and new beginnings. Lyra's head turned toward him. She listened, her white hair falling around her shoulders. The tune echoed in the still night. She closed her eyes and nodded once, as if the song spoke to her heart. Then, with a soft crack, the bud split open. Pale petals unfolded like wings. The flower's center glowed faintly, casting gentle light on Cade and Lyra. They both leaned forward to see it fully open. Lyra's lips curved in a shy smile. She looked at Cade and said, "This bloom marks peace among all worlds." Her voice was full of wonder. Cade offered his hand. Lyra took it and stood, the blooming flower between them. For a moment, they remained there, two figures joined by hope and light. A distant horn sounded from the palace gates. Lyra's eyes widened. She released Cade's hand and bowed gracefully. "I must return," she said. "Thank you for sharing this moment." Cade stood and bowed in return. "Thank you, Your Highness," he replied. "I will never forget this night." Lyra's guards appeared at the garden entrance. She turned once more, her gentle gaze meeting Cade's. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "we continue our talk." Then she stepped back, and the guards led her away through the moonlit arch. Cade watched until she vanished from view. The rare flower's glow faded, but its promise of peace burned bright in his heart. Early the next morning, Cade woke in his guest suite. Soft light filtered through tall windows. He dressed quickly in his blue coat. His mind replayed the rare flower's glow and Lyra's warm smile. He felt both nervous and excited for the day ahead. A gentle knock came at his door. A young Erelax messenger stood there, bowing low. "Your Highness requests your presence in the council chamber, human envoy," the messenger said. Cade nodded and followed him down long corridors, lined with silver tapestries. At the council chamber entrance, two guards in red armor stood at attention. Cade felt his heart pound. He drew a deep breath and stepped inside. The chamber was vast and circular, with a domed ceiling painted like the night sky. Crystal chandeliers hung from long chains, scattering light like constellations. Princess Lyra waited at the center on a low dais. Around her stood a circle of council members in dark robes. Each held a slender staff tipped with a glowing gem. They watched Cade with curious eyes as he approached. Lyra smiled and bowed. "Counselors," she said, her voice steady. "This is Cade of Earth. He comes with a gift of peace." A soft murmur rose among the council. Some faces showed hope, others doubt. One counselor stepped forward, his gem glowing pale green. "Princess," he said, "why trust these humans? They once fought among themselves for centuries." His voice was calm but firm. The other members nodded in agreement. Cade looked at the counselor and raised his hands in a gentle gesture. "I understand your fear," he said. "Earth has known war. But I stand here because we chose peace. Last night, I shared stories with your princess. We found that hope can bridge any gap." He spoke clearly, meeting each counselor's gaze. A hush fell. The counselors exchanged glances. Lyra watched Cade with pride. Then another counselor, her gem glowing pale blue, spoke softly. "Your words carry truth, human. Yet our greatest threat lies beyond our borders. A warlord named Varric gathers fleets on the Outer Rim. He will not stop until he controls both our worlds." Lyra nodded. "That is why we must stand together. We cannot face Varric alone." She turned to Cade. "Will you join me in a joint mission to the Rim? Will Earth and Erelax unite under this cause?" Cade bowed his head. "With all my heart, Your Highness. I will sail with your fleet and fight for peace." The counselors looked at one another. Slowly, their staffs dimmed and glowed in unison, a sign of their accord. The head counselor stepped forward, his gem shining bright white. "So be it. We pledge our ships and our warriors to this alliance." He raised his staff, and the other counselors mirrored him. Lyra descended the dais and stood beside Cade. She offered her hand. He took it, feeling warmth at their joined fingers. The council doors opened, and sunlight spilled into the chamber. Together, Cade and Lyra walked out to face their people. Behind them, the counselors stood united. Beyond the marble steps, the Erelax fleet waited. In that moment, two worlds truly became one. By dawn, the Erelax fleet was ready at the starport. Cade and Princess Lyra stood on the main platform. Behind them, rows of silver ships gleamed in the soft morning light. Soldiers and crew moved in neat lines. Cade felt the cool breeze of the outer docks. He adjusted his coat and looked to Lyra. "We leave in 1 hour," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. She wore a simple officer's uniform now, her crown set aside. "We will face Warlord Varric together." Cade nodded. He felt both pride and nervousness. He had trained for this, but facing a real war was different. They walked through the fleet to the command ship. Officers saluted them as they passed. Each salute was a sign of trust. Cade met many faces, pilots, engineers, and medics. He smiled and bowed, offering a few words of thanks. Lyra moved beside him, speaking quietly with her captains. They discussed routes and supplies. Arriving on the command deck, Cade entered a room filled with holomaps. A large circular table held a projection of the Rim sector. Stars and planets spun slowly above it. Lyra tapped a blinking point on the map. "Here," she said, "is Varric's stronghold. We will approach from 2 directions to divide his forces." She pointed to a second route. "Cade, your fleet will circle from the south. My ships will come from the north." Cade studied the plan. He traced the paths with his finger. "This gives us surprise," he agreed. "It also protects our ships from his outer guns." Lyra nodded. "We sail at first light. Rest now, envoy. We will need clear minds tomorrow." That night, Cade slept in his cabin aboard the command ship. He dreamt of Earth, of green fields and calm seas. When he woke, he dressed quickly and joined Lyra on the deck. The crew was already at stations. The sky above the Rim glittered with distant suns. The engines hummed to life. Lights blinked on the control panels. Lyra stepped to the railing beside Cade. "Are you ready?" she asked. He turned to her and offered a small smile. "I am," he said, "for peace and for our new alliance." At her signal, the flagship lifted from the dock. Other ships followed in a silent line. The fleet slipped into space like silver arrows. Cade felt the ship's gentle shake as thrusters fired. He watched the stars grow behind them, and the Aerolac's homeworld faded to a glowing pearl. In the command center, Lyra and Cade stood before the holomap. It showed the fleet's path to Varric's stronghold. "This alliance will prove our strength," Lyra said softly. Cade placed a hand on her arm. "Together, we will bring peace to both our peoples." The fleet sped toward the unknown. In Cade's heart, hope and resolve burned bright. Ahead lay danger and battle. But beside him stood the princess who believed in him. And that belief was more powerful than any weapon. 2 seconds, days passed as the Allied fleet sailed deeper into rim space. The stars outside the command ship's windows streaked by in long lines. Cade and Princess Lyra spent hours planning each move. Yet both knew the true test lay ahead, facing Warlord Varric's forces. Early one morning, the fleet emerged from a nebula. Varric's stronghold loomed ahead, an imposing fortress built into an asteroid belt. Its dark turrets and gun emplacements lined the rocks like teeth. Alarms echoed across the fleet's channels. Soldiers manned their stations, ready for battle. Lyra stood at the command deck's front, her expression calm. She tapped a holo button, and a tactical map appeared. Red markers showed enemy ships guarding the entrance. "Cade," she said, "we must split our forces now. Your ships take the southern pass. Mine will hit from the north. We strike at once when I give the signal." Cade nodded. "Understood, Your Highness." He turned to the communications officer. "Relay orders to the southern squadrons. Prepare fighters and frigates for immediate engagement." The officer saluted and tapped commands on a console. Outside, the fleet divided. Silver vessels slid south, while Lyra's ships curved north. The asteroid belt's rocks passed between them like silent giants. Suddenly, red beams of light cut through the darkness. Varric's defense turrets opening fire. Fighters from Cade's wing dashed forward. They wove through laser fire, their engines glowing bright blue. Frigates returned fire, their cannons booming against the asteroid walls. Cade watched the holomap as red markers blinked and faded. His fleet forged ahead, clearing a path toward the central fortress. In the north, Lyra led her ships around a large rock formation. She issued swift orders. "Shield up. Focus fire on the turret arrays." Her captains obeyed. Energy bolts struck the guns, causing small explosions that sent debris flying. On the command deck, Cade and Lyra watched 2 battles play out at once. Voices crackled through the comms. Cade gripped the railing. "Our fighters are holding," he said, relief in his voice. "We're making progress." Lyra's face lit by the holo glow. "Good. Now we close in for the final strike." She pressed a button, and the Allied ships converged on the fortress's core. Massive doors began to open, revealing Varric's flagship docked inside. A squadron of enemy cruisers emerged. Lyra's ships charged at them head-on. Cade's vessels cut in from behind, surrounding the cruisers in a pincer. Explosions bloomed in the void as shields failed and hulls ruptured. At last, Varric's flagship was isolated. Lyra's voice came over the comm. "Target the command tower. Disable its systems." Plasma beams streaked forward, striking the tower's engines. Smoke and sparks flew across the viewports. Cade opened a channel to Lyra. "Once the tower falls, we board their ship and capture Varric." She nodded. "Prepare boarding teams." He relayed the order to his officers. Magnetic grapplers shot from the Allied ships and latched onto the fortress walls. Troops in armored suits floated across the gap. Lyra and Cade led the charge, stepping onto the deck of the damaged flagship. Inside, alarms blared. Enemy soldiers scrambled to defend their leader. But they hesitated when Lyra and Cade appeared at the hatch, their alliance symbol shining on their uniforms. Varric himself stood blocking their path, a cruel smile on his face. The final confrontation had begun. In that moment, 2 worlds' hopes rested on a human envoy and an alien princess, standing side by side against tyranny. The corridor inside Varric's flagship was cold and dim. Alarm lights flashed red. Metal plates shook from nearby explosions. Cade and Princess Lyra led their small team forward, boots echoing on the floor. Behind them, their boarding troops held blasters at the ready. At the corridor's end, Varric blocked the way. He wore heavy black armor and carried a large pulse rifle. His dark eyes glittered with anger. "You dare come here," he growled. Smoke curled from his wounded ship. Lyra stepped forward, her hand resting on her sidearm. "Your reign of terror ends now, Varric," she said. Her voice was firm, leaving no space for argument. Cade stood beside her, unarmed but unwavering. Varric laughed harshly. He raised his rifle and fired a pulse shot. Lyra dove aside, pulling Cade with her. The blast hit the wall with a loud crack. Dust filled the air. Lyra rolled to her feet and fired her sidearm. A red plasma bolt struck Varric's leg, and he stumbled. Cade seized the moment. He rushed forward and grabbed Varric's rifle. The weapon slipped from the warlord's grip. Soldiers behind them cheered softly but stayed ready. Varric snarled and lunged at Cade, swinging a heavy fist. Cade leaned back and sidestepped. He used Varric's momentum to push him into the wall. Metal groaned under the force. Lyra joined Cade, placing her hand on Varric's shoulder to keep him pinned. The corridor lights flickered around them. Varric struggled, but Lyra's grip was strong. Cade stepped closer and spoke quietly but clearly. "You will stand trial for your crimes, Varric. Your fleet surrenders." Varric's eyes burned with fury, but he did not move. At that moment, more Allied troops arrived. They formed a circle around the trio, weapons trained on Varric. One soldier cuffed the warlord's hands with energy restraints. Varric hissed through his teeth but fell silent under their secure hold. Lyra straightened and looked at Cade. "Thank you," she said, her tone softening. Cade nodded, feeling relief flood his chest. He helped guide Varric's arms behind his back. The warlord glared at them, but could not break free. Outside the corridor, the flagship's crew watched from secure rooms. When they saw their leader captured, many dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. The Allied troops moved through the ship, securing each deck and freeing prisoners. Cheers echoed in the metal halls. Cade and Lyra reached the command bridge. The holomap showed the fortress lights dimming. Varric's forces had laid down arms. Lyra stepped to the central console and sent the message. "Allied forces secure. Varric captured. Cease fire and prepare for transport." Across the board, green lights replaced red. The fortress gates opened, and Allied vessels entered to collect prisoners and civilians. Lyra turned to Cade. "We did it," she said, her eyes bright. Cade smiled. Together. He looked at the stars beyond the viewports. He thought of Earth and the journey that brought him here. Then he looked at Lyra. "This is only the start of a new era," he said. Lyra nodded. She turned back to the console and began sending orders. Cade stood beside her, ready for whatever came next. In that moment, two worlds stood united, stronger than any warlord or fear. With Warlord Varric secured, the Allied fleet gathered above the asteroid fortress. The dark guns were silent now, and the once threatening walls lay open. Cade and Princess Lyra stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching their crews work. Ships loaded prisoners and freed civilians. Engineers repaired hull breaches. The air was filled with hope. Lyra turned to Cade. "You led the Southern Fleet with courage," she said quietly. "Our victory rests on your skill." Cade felt warmth at her words. He bowed his head. "Your Highness, it was an honor to serve by your side." He glanced at the holomap, where green markers showed Allied control. Below them, prisoners from Varric's forces were gathered in holding cells. Lyra ordered a tribunal to judge their fate. "Our laws demand justice," she said, "but we must show mercy where it is due." Cade nodded. "Earth teaches forgiveness alongside justice. Perhaps we can blend our ways. Lyra smiled. We will hold trials together. We will learn from each other. She tapped a control, and the ship's comm system announced the plan across the fleet. Meanwhile, engineers had discovered children hidden in one of the fortress's sectors. They trembled in fear but brightened when Allied soldiers offered food and water. Cade crouched beside them, offering gentle words in his calm voice. "You are safe now," he told them. "We will take you home." Their eyes filled with trust, and they clung to his hands. Lyra joined him, guiding the children to a waiting medical team. She bent down and spoke softly. "You are under our protection." The children's tears turned to shy smiles. Cade watched Lyra's gentle care and felt respect deepen for the princess. Back on the bridge, counselors and Earth diplomats arrived to discuss the next steps. A long table was set with holo-projectors displaying data on rim space resources, colony needs, and transport routes. Lyra and Cade led the meeting. They listened as experts spoke of rebuilding starports, restoring trade lines, and aiding refugees. Cade leaned toward Lyra and whispered, "Our worlds will grow stronger together." She nodded. "This is the legacy we will leave. Unity." After the meeting, a celebration began in the main hangar. Holographic lanterns floated overhead. Music played softly, mixing Aerolac's wind instruments with Earth strings. Soldiers and crew smiled and shared stories. Some danced under the lights. Cade and Lyra walked among them, offering thanks and greetings. A group of engineers presented Cade with a small plaque made from Aerolac's crystal. It read, "To Cade of Earth, champion of peace." He accepted it with humility. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. "You earned this," she said. Cade felt pride and gratitude. He looked around at the joyous faces, the humans, and Aerolac standing side by side. He thought of the long journey from the throne room invitation to this moment of triumph. As the celebration continued, Lyra and Cade stepped onto a raised platform. The music faded. Lyra spoke to the crowd in her clear voice. "Today we proved that trust can defeat fear." She looked at Cade, "And that a simple dinner invitation can change history." Laughter and cheers followed. Cade bowed and addressed both peoples. "Let us move forward together, with courage and kindness. Let us build a future where no world stands alone." More cheers rose, echoing through the hangar. In that glowing moment, two worlds celebrated a new alliance. The promise of peace stretched across the stars, born from a dinner offer and sealed by shared hope. Weeks later, the Allied fleet prepared to return to their homeworlds. Ships gathered at the rim space docking ring, engines humming softly. Cade stood on the platform of the command ship, watching as Aerolacs and Earth vessels linked arms in salute. His blue coat flapped in the gentle breeze of the docking bay. Beside him, Princess Lyra wore her royal uniform once more. Her silver sash caught the light of distant stars. Lyra turned to Cade and offered a small box carved from pale wood. "A gift for you," she said. Cade opened it to find a simple pendant shaped like the rare peace flower from the moon garden. Its petals were made of crystal that glowed faintly. He lifted it carefully and felt its warmth. "Thank you, Your Highness," he replied. "I will wear it always." Lyra smiled and placed the pendant around his neck. The crystal settled over his heart. "May it remind you of our promise," she said, her tone soft with meaning. A crisp voice spoke over the comm system, calling all crew to final assembly. Cade and Lyra walked together to the central plaza. There, representatives from both worlds gathered to bid farewell. Human diplomats stood with Aerolac's counselors. Soldiers from both fleets stood at ease, united in friendship. Lyra addressed the crowd. "Friends of Earth and Aerolacs, we return home as allies and as brothers in spirit. Our worlds will share knowledge, culture, and hope. Let this alliance last generations." Applause rose like waves across the plaza. Cade stepped forward. He spoke in simple but heartfelt words. "On Earth, we say that true courage is shown by those who dare to hope. Today, we proved that hope can unite worlds. Thank you, Princess Lyra. And thank you to all who believed in peace." Cheers and cheers followed, echoing off the domed ceiling. After the speeches, Cade and Lyra walked to the docking bay edge. Ships from Earth gleamed with white and blue markings. Arilax vessels bore silver and red emblems. Crews waved from open hatches. Cade spotted his small Earth shuttle among them. He nodded to its pilot, a young woman with bright eyes. Lyra placed a hand on his arm. "Safe travels, Cade of Earth," she said. "May our worlds meet again soon." Cade bowed his head. "And may your reign bring peace to Arilax," he replied. They clasped forearms in a warrior's salute. Then Cade turned and boarded his shuttle. The hatch closed with a soft hiss. He settled into the pilot's seat, the pendant warm at his chest. Engines powered up, and the shuttle lifted from the dock. Through the viewport, Cade saw Lyra standing on the platform, her white hair shining under the starlight. He raised a hand in farewell. Lyra held her hand to her heart and nodded. The shuttle rose into space. Stars and worlds blurred as it sped home. Cade thought of the first dinner invitation in the throne room, the moment that changed history. He felt hope and pride, knowing that one small offer had led to unity and courage across galaxies. Ahead lay Earth, bright and blue against the dark. Cade set his course. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. He whispered to the crystal pendant, "Thank you, Princess." Then he opened his eyes and guided the shuttle home, carrying with him the promise of a new era of peace.